Okay. We'll be starting shortly with my other guest, Mila POPOVICH, who will be joining us shortly, but I don't want to waste any more time. So we had some breakout sessions earlier today where we were examining, oh, here we come. Mila? We had identified four new paradigms that we're going to shape and prepare the youth to face challenges in education in the 21st century. We broke up into four groups. Thank you. We broke up into groups that focused on pedagogy, curriculum, delivery system, and institutional collaboration. And we have some short notes to report back on each of those. I'm going to start with Mila. Mila POPOVICH is the founder of Evolving Leadership, and she's also Director General of Directorate for Interculturalism of the Government of Montenegro. Mila's session, or rather her breakout group, was on pedagogy, and she's going to give us a brief response as to what was discussed in that group and the findings.
Thank you very much, and I'm amazed that the auditorium is full at the tail end of the conference. To me, that signals that you're eager to learn, at least get some kind of true feedback, some true takeaway from what we have shared here for the last 3 days. And in that sense, we are ending on a very high note because the session that I was listening to and reporting on was really tending to the whole human being and to the full spectrum of learning and educational needs a person truly needs to develop as a human, as well as a professional and an employable person, ready to enter the economic domain in that sense. So what we heard in that session is some innovative strategies starting from Professor and Dr. Stefan Brunhuber, who you heard him talk about in his initial speech about pacing and organizing and harmonizing a learning session in a certain way that it starts from a meditative state where you enter your own mental state first and clean it up a little bit, if you will, for a couple of minutes of silence, undistracted space and time in order to enter, say, a cycle of 12 minutes of studying, intense studying of the subject, which is very similar to many of you that do gym know that they're intensive periods of training that really build a certain kind of muscle memory. In this sense, this is mental power that you build in a brief segment of 12, then you're following by a physical activity, and he proposed yoga. I would also add dance to it. We need to dance together, followed by another intensive period, rapid of training and information amassing, and then finally rounding off with 2 minutes of meditation again, which gives us enough space and enough mental time space to internalize, truly integrate the knowledge. So speaking of integration, our next two speakers spoke exactly about what it will take to have an integrative pedagogy, an integrative approach to teaching and learning, and also emerge as an integrated person out of that kind of training or learning, which of course is never an end product. We are not supposed to be an end product. We're supposed to be beings that are set on their own becoming. In other words, that we learn how to learn in order to expedite our own becoming in the world, and also being more agile, more versatile and diverse in that sense, and more adaptable to the ever-changing and faster changing world and of accelerated change. So some of the things that were proposed in that session on the integrative process, that what we need is a kind of a double alignment. which is a learning and teaching that is focused on personal transformation, starting from learning how to learn, but also how to learn about oneself and go back to the perennial dictum that says, know thyself, right? That by knowing yourself, you get to know the microcosm, which in itself contains the universe, right? So in other words, the wherewithal, the knowledge of the all is contained in a fractal way, right? Within oneself. So it starts from personal alignment and development of the human being along the full scale of humanity. And it involves the physical development, emotional, social, mental, as well as spiritual. And your spirituality, when Ambassador Amanda Alice gave us a little bit of sense of what it means to move energy together, however you define your path, since we are in a predominantly Muslim country and we should honor that. You know that in Islam, in namaz, right? You equally have a yoga, so to speak, where you bow and bend and touch the floor. So there's an integral knowledge that is actually there in all the pathways, in all the religious pathways, that does not exclude yogic practice or Muslim practice or deep Christian practice or many other practices and different paths. But the whole point about the spiritual dimension is that the human strives for transcendence, that the human has a drive towards something that is bigger than themselves, because it in return gives meaning to their own existence. So the notion of the transcendent, and that's what we call spiritual, higher values, universal values, whatever you can connect to or cathect to, is important in that sense. So those very same guidances from personal transformation along the full line of development of the whole being, along with the horizontal development and the capacity of the person to develop higher connectivity with other humans and know how to relate with other humans and one's environment. So those two coordinates of personal and collective development in education are key. And as you know, the deeper we know ourselves and the deeper we develop all of our potential and a full scale and spectrum of human being, our capacity for connectivity is actually widened, okay? And there's going to be an increasing in our world as it, the way it's trending right now, there's going to be an increased need for an expression of authentic being right along with the capacity to connect with many through empathy. So these are some of the, this is the greatest design that kind of emerged out of this session. So we're looking at also the insight that we received from Dalia Mammon, who comes from Grains of Peace, an NGO, who spoke of different dimensions that need to be developed, such as emotional intelligence, human values and relationship skills, which we just mentioned through this design, that we need to strive for peace and kind of dispense of or unlearn the reflex towards fight or flight and defense, but rather develop a reflex, a muscle for peace, if you will, right? An impetus towards peace. And of course, discernment and self-reflection. All of this comes through what I just explained, through this double coordinates of personal collective development. So if we, in other words, what Delia was discussing, saying, when we look at our current needs as human beings in the context of our own countries, our own immediate communities and environment, we will see that the education that we're getting is not following and is not aligned with those needs. So we have greater need again, for collectivity, for solidarity, for peace of mind and peace of heart, for peaceful existence, for capacity to be agile, versatile, and flexible. And how do we then teach exactly towards those needs and make ourselves more adaptable in the changing econopolitical and sociocultural environment in our countries and at world at large? So some of the capacities that are being taught in the approach that Delia was discussing was capacity to participate, this kind of participative learning and inclusive, where everybody's perspectives are included, and that way the knowledge multiplies exponentially when that happens. So that it is collective and collaborative, that there's democratization of the learning process, and I would add, in that sense, we are witnessing in the world the greater democratization of excellence, whereby you have seen it on TikTok, Instagram. I'm speaking to your social media reality. You have seen 3-year-olds that are absolute masterminds or virtuosos playing an instrument, but you also see a 90-year-old woman who is a yoga master or dance instructor still, or mathematician with a lucid mind. So we have moved the boundaries of human capacity and have shown this kind of unique excellence that is ever expanding, which we think technologically will be enhanced, but also collectively through greater connectivity will be multiplied. So that we have experiential learning, the learning of questioning and self-reflection, and meta-reflection in the sense of also reflecting on the self and the world and the self in the world, right? And larger questions. What we have coming is more pondering through this meta-reflection, greater interconnectedness of all the systems of knowledge. And this is where it's really, really important to mention that when we constantly speak of art and science as if they're living next to each other, it is equal to saying that you may not need half of your brain. If you have a brain that has 2 hemispheres and they are cross-referencing each other, if you will, then when we talk about art and science, we really need to go beyond the polarization and dichotomy and having to have a defense on what is truly needed, because science is a mental art, okay? And art is a comprehensive experience of phenomenon. So one takes it apart and dissects to know, the other experiences it in its wholeness. You tell me if you can actually get rid of one or the other. Both are human drives and need each other for completeness of human knowledge and human experience.
Mila, we still have
Yes.
3 more sessions to
Yes.
report.
So I'm rounding this off on this kind of note. This is where I'm at. So the capacities, the approaches are multiple, and they will all have to involve, once again, and to round this off, they will all have to involve all the dimensions of human being, which means that you will not be any longer sitting like this and me talking on the other side, or somehow we will have to be at least in a circle and be active. And our sessions need to be more adapted to our attention spans in the world of technology, which could be very beneficial because we have immersion technologies coming soon, and we'll be able to know what it feels like to be the other or another and experience the world of phenomenon through technology in a very tactile way. So once again, we need an education, and that means every subject, and there's a way to devise that will engage every aspect of human being, to induce, or better word, to inspire personal transformation that will eventually increase every single person's capacity to connect with a greater number of people, perspectives, sources, and systems of knowledge, and evolve a universal human being through this kind of intercultural, in every dimension, dialogue, cooperation, peacemaking.
Thank you, Mila. Before we go to Shweta Rangan, who's joining us from India behind us.
Hi, Grant. Hi, Mila.
Hi, welcome. The person who was going to report back on the curriculum has unfortunately left, but I have been sent some notes, which will take very quick to go through. So I'm just going to read out the notes and the findings of the curriculum session. There was a need for, they identified the need for curriculum reform and for student requests to be taken seriously. Climate change and sustainability was ranked very highly as a priority. The group thought that critical thinking and problem-based learning was the way to go. There was a transdisciplinary approach needed. Also within education, practical skills, for example, lab-based environments were preferred over purely just speaking-based conveying of knowledge. And with that, visuals, not just facts. There was also a call for religious tolerance. Memory, time management, and life skills was identified as being important. The psychology of human interaction should be incorporated in learning, along with innovation. There should be an awareness of unconscious bias. And then finally, we should all learn to truly see and not just watch. And now I would like to hand over to Shweta RANGAN in India. She is the editorial advisor of the Cadmus journal, where a lot of the World Academy of Art and Science writings appear on a regular basis. And she's also a senior research associate at the Mother Service Society. So Shweta, if you would like to give us your feedback on institutional collaboration, please.
Thank you, Grant. The session began with Professor Eden asking a group of medical students to think and reflect on the importance of medical universities and hospitals collaborating and how that would affect the future of doctors. The students replied saying that this collaboration will offer broader subject knowledge, global networking, and stronger potential as it will offer real-time experience. Srijit spoke to the students about the types of institutional collaborations. University collaborations with industries for internship and skill development, university collaborations with other universities for student exchange, credit transfer and course exchange, collaboration with accreditation agencies for quality and professional development, collaboration with government bodies and United Nations, collaboration with industrial consortiums, NGOs, and social service organizations. Srijit also highlighted that these collaborations can be strengthened using the use of AI. Dr. Ralph Wolf highlighted the need for applied research in the medical profession as data generated from case studies and human experiments are done mostly on men and the data on women's health and related symptoms is not accurate. He highlighted that stress is the underlying cause of many medical conditions. I highlighted the need for more student and staff exchange mobility programs like Erasmus that could lay a foundation for developing a world-class global education system. I also encouraged the students to reflect on the scope of institutional collaboration that can go beyond education. It could become a pathway for peace and human security, and I posed the question to the students to think how this can be accomplished. And we close the session with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta. I was in the session that looked at delivery systems, and we started off with Jo Nurse, who drew some very nice diagrams for us. She acknowledged the fact that we are living in an era of multiple challenges: climate, conflict, the fast development of technology and AI. And she came up with a really interesting insight. She said, we need to learn from the planet because it's been around longer than we have. Look at the planet, how it delivers systems, and think of how that can be applied to how education can be delivered in higher institutions. She broke up the considerations we should have for this delivery system into governance, knowledge, advocacy, and capacity. And then we also acknowledge the fact that universities need to align what they teach with what employers need in the marketplace. We're living in a very fast-paced environment where sometimes what you start learning 4 years later is already redundant. But I think it's very valuable, as we know, for higher institutions to keep an eye on what the end need is, which is what employers are looking for as well. So that came out as a big issue. We then turned over to the students who broke up into about 4 groups to discuss among themselves. And they came back with some very interesting insights. There was a need to look at delivery beyond the obvious channels. For example, language, speed of learning, whether you're coming in over Zoom, online, or in person, and also whether you learn while you're traveling on the go, or if you do all your learning in one place. We then asked the students, what helps you learn today? And we were told that delivery of education depends on the field that you're in. Medical is more conducive to being taught in person, and technology is more conducive to being taught online. We were told that education should be more enjoyable. It depends on the subject that you are being taught, obviously, and that systems should ultimately be designed to benefit people. People should not be forced into systems that don't understand human nature. There's a lot of focus, obviously, with AI and technology for systems, but it's very easy to forget the human element within that when you design them. The focus of learning, one woman said, should be on the emphasis of how it will change something for the better. Think of what comes out the other side, right at the very beginning. Delivery of knowledge must also be about effective transfer of skills, and not just about institutions pushing students through a paid bureaucracy. And those are the insights we got from delivery. And with that, we are exactly on time to move into the final closing plenary. So thank you to our rapporteurs from the sessions, and we will be moving shortly.
Thank you.